Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and unfortunately, I saw online today that Peter Cullen has passed away. Um, for anyone who doesn't know, Peter Cullen was a voice actor. He provided the voices for a lot of beloved characters um, from tons of different cartoons and then the live action stuff like Gremlins and Knight Rider and just all sorts of stuff. But I would argue that the thing he is probably best remembered for is that he was the voice of Optimus Prime. And I don't want to go off on a big tangent about it, but when I was a kid, I had a pretty rough childhood, and most days the only good thing in my life was getting off the school bus, grabbing a snack or something, and I would sit down in front of the TV just in time to watch Transformers. And mind you, there were tons of cartoons in the 80s that I loved, but nothing compared to Optimus Prime. And it for sure was the voice that I gravitated toward. Um, I didn't have a dad growing up. I was the only kid at my school who didn't have a dad. Mind you, it was a small school in the middle of nowhere, but that was one of a million things that like kids would give me a hard time about, was that I was the one kid with no dad. And so my mom worked all the time and was just never around. And so nobody was really teaching me anything about like right and wrong or anything like that, you know what I mean? But I would watch Transformers and here's the voice of Peter Cullen talking about the importance of, honor or keeping your word or whatever, right? And he was just such an important part of my childhood. I don't even have the words. I don't know how to explain it. It's one of those things where I feel like if you weren't in the situation, it would maybe be hard to kind of wrap your head around. But he was he was huge. He was such a massive part of my life. Um, and I'm not the only one. I've seen so many tributes online with people talking about how much he meant to them. And there were a lot of other guys where we're kind of the latchkey kid generation. And they were saying the same thing where he was sort of what gave them an idea of what a man should be. And he was just this inherently fatherly kind of a guy. And in interviews and stuff, he would mention that at these various conventions he would go to, grown men would come up to him and just burst into tears and say, "You're the closest thing to a dad I ever had." Um, and people make a lot of jokes about how he kind of raised Generation X, but he kind of did in a way, though. Like it really is sort of true. Um, at least in my case, it feels like it's true. So him passing away, um, it's not like with other celebrities, you know. Um, I am so sad. I just don't even have the words for it. I tried to meet him just a few months ago. He was at this convention in Pittsburgh called Steel City Con. And there's another video on my channel about it if you want to know more about it in greater detail. But by the time we got there, they said there's no way you're meeting him. There's like this huge line of people in front of you, and you're not going to meet him. And so I don't know how long I stood in that line, hours, And eventually they came around and they said he's leaving. He's not feeling well and he's leaving for the day and that's it. You go home or whatever. And so the line started to disperse. And by the way, the guys in front of me in line were not even fans of his. They just had stuff that they wanted him to sign because they could sell it for more money on eBay. Um, so that was really frustrating. That like I kind of just wanted to give the guy a hug and tell him how much he meant to me. But so I sort of hurried over to where he was at. I just wanted to see him with my own eyes, and I did. I'm a bad judge of distance, so I couldn't tell you how close I was. I want to say it was like 20 or 30 feet maybe. But I saw him and I don't know what face I was making at the time, but I was emotional, right? And he looked right at me and he saw the look in my eyes and I waved at him and I went to talk and I couldn't even say anything. I was just choked up. And so he waved back and it seemed like he got it. Like it's this weird nonverbal communication thing. It's hard to put into words. Seemed like he got it though. And he waved back to me and he said, I love you. And I tried to say it back and my voice kind of cracked. And the only thing that came out was, love you. I was trying to say, I love you too, but I just said, love you. And he kind of gave me like a nod. And then they helped him out this door, and there was a wheelchair there waiting for him because he was not in good health then. And I had a feeling, like I knew this day was coming, basically, just based on how he looked at the show. And I hated it. And I hate it today. I never wanted this day to come. And I knew I'd be really sad when this day came, but somehow the outcome is even worse than I imagined. But here I am, talking about myself. I apologize. The point is, Peter Cullen was awesome. I have never heard anybody say anything negative about the man. Um, I have the great privilege of being friends with a handful of his coworkers, some of the other guys, um, like Dan Gilvezan, who's the voice of Bumblebee. I was friends with Jack Angel, um, stuff like that. Flint Dilley. Um, they have always had nothing but kind things to say about him. If you go on social media today, tons of people who had the chance to meet him have nothing but good things to say about the man. Um, and I'm going to go out on a limb a little more than I normally would. And I'm going to say that I just, I think that kindness would shine through his performance. And I think that's why people gravitated to him. And I would even go so far as to say that's why we have things like Transformers movies and we have Transformers cartoons to this day, I think all that interest was because of what he brought to the table. And I think it was the man and not the character. I really do. Because, and I'm not trying to cast shade on anybody else, but there were a lot of 80s cartoon heroes, right? Nobody else really gets this level of attention. You know what I mean? Um, but I think it's because he was a good man. And I think the world needed a good man. I think a whole generation needed somebody to look up to, and he was the guy. And I think the world is a darker place tonight without him in it. You know, so man, rest in peace, Peter Cullen. Uh, I have nothing. I don't really have anything intelligent to say. I'm just brokenhearted. I'm, yeah. As always, if you guys want to leave a comment, feel free. Sometimes it's kind of good to commiserate, to sort of just share our experiences and our feelings and stuff like that. That's kind of what these types of videos are for. Um, but I'm going to wrap it up. As always, uh, thank you guys for being here. I say it all the time, but it's because it comes from my heart. I do think you guys are awesome. I wish everybody well, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.